All of us know how to deal with everyday problems, don't we? Because we are familiar with the problems, their proportions, we are ready with the resources, and we are also very clear about how to deal with them if there is a diversion or a digression. But when there is some kind of a crisis, most of us are thrown out of gear. And how to deal with such situations has been discussed deeply in the Dharma Shastras. They are known as Sama, conciliation, Dana, offering of gift or a bribe, Bheda, causing dissension, and Danda, or punishment. Today, I'm going to be citing instances from Indian history using these 4 strategies known as the Chatur Upayaha. Okay. And this is also going to be in tune with the theme of today's talks, that is reimagining the ordinary. So, picture the scene. 18th century Karnataka had a small kingdom called Chitradurga. It was ensconced within a little fort. It was a stone fort. And a neighboring king, Hyder Ali, wanted to conquer this fort. But he couldn't. As you can see in the picture, if it is like this today, how it must have been all those days ago. He was not able to find an opening into the fort. But he was a die-hard optimist. So he posted a lot of spies, and they found out that there was a small opening at the base of the fort which could lead the army in, one by one. Hyder Ali stationed his army in the wilderness around the fort, and then he was waiting for a time when this opening would be left unguarded. And he was lucky enough to find one such day, rather one such afternoon. And on that day, when he planned infiltration, it so happened that Obava, the wife of a sentry, had gone out to fetch water. And when she was climbing uphill, halfway uphill with this pot of water, she noticed an enemy soldier entering through this hole. What would most of us have done? She was also alarmed, like anyone would. But she knew that there was absolutely no point in raising an alert, because the infiltration was taking place because there was no one to guard that place. Therefore, what she does is, she quietly walks home, leaves her pot of water at home, and picks up a pestle that is used to pound rice or wheat or any other food grain, and she comes back and stations herself at that little opening. And as each soldier crawled in, she would strike him over the head, bring him down dead, then yank the dead body alongside and wait for the next soldier to come in. And she did this one after another continuously till the guards came back, the army was alerted, and they were able to drive away the troops of Hyder Ali. What Obava did was, she utilized Danda, or the 4th strategy of the Chaturupaya. Danda, interestingly, in Sanskrit also means a stick. She used the pestle, an ordinary kitchen implement, to save the fort. And she did it single-handedly, without raising an alarm or causing any kind of a distraction. And by doing so, she kind of showed not only her love to her motherland, but also her ability to act on the spur of the moment. Now, let us rewind. This is one part of the story. Let us look at another upaya. 3rd century BC, India had this wonderful teacher called Chanakya. And he was very upset with the debauchery and the kind of corruption that the country was going through. So he groomed a young man and helped him to overthrow the Nanda dynasty and installed this young man Chandragupta on the throne of Magadha. But then the problems were not entirely settled. Basically because the dead king's loyal minister called Rakshasa was very upset with Chandragupta's leadership. He did not approve of it. So this Rakshasa, the name of the minister, he goes and approaches an enemy of Chandragupta, Malayaketu, and he tells, if you have an uprisal against Chandragupta, along with 5 other neighboring kings, there is no way in which he can win. So please do this, I can organize this. And Chanakya somehow came to know about this plot. He knew his calculations well. How can, when you have a war between 1 king and 6 kings, common sense will tell us that only that the 6 kings will win, majority wins. So he takes up a pen and writes a letter. And how does he write this letter? He writes it in Rakshasa's name to Chandragupta. And then he also ensures that this letter is, somehow it reaches Malayaketu and his 5 friends. He stage manages it in such a way that the letter reaches them. And as warranted, the letter is read and open, and then they find that, Rakshasa has told Chandragupta that he can fight against Malayaketu, and the 5 kings will actually fight on the side of Chandragupta against Malayaketu. And then they can be rewarded accordingly. Now, this caused so much of disturbance, suspicion, dissension amongst the 6 kings, and they ended up killing each other. Chanakya he understood the power of the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword. With 6 deaths, he averted the deaths and destructions of probably 6 lakh people, 6 kingdoms. I should say 7, because even in Chandragupta's kingdom, there would have been a lot of casualties and loss and destruction. So Chanakya employed a strategy of bheda, or causing dissension, in the most simplistic manner to ensure that the throne of Magadha was secured. And it ruled over India for centuries to come. Now we will explore another upaya of dana or charity. They say that where there is a will, there is a way. Once, in 18th century India, you find that Chhatrapati Shivaji, he marched against Aurangzeb and he was imprisoned. Because the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb was obviously much more powerful than a weary army that marched from down south up to Delhi. He was kept prisoner in the Agra jail. Shivaji instructed his army to return and stayed on in captivity for 2 weeks. Then he called sick. Then he also sought audience with Aurangzeb. And then he told him, look, in Indian tradition, whenever somebody is ill or whenever there is some kind of a setback in the family or in personal life, we think that giving dana or giving charity is a way to offset these ailments. So with your permission, I would like to give sweets to the Brahmanas and the poor. Aurangzeb, for all his cleverness, did not see anything wrong in this proposition. So what he did was, from the next day on, or from that day onwards itself, huge baskets of sweets left the Agra fort. And the soldiers became complicit because they knew that what is going out of the fort are only sweets. And on one fateful rainy day, Shivaji got into one of the baskets, and interestingly, he was carried out by the very captivator. All the soldiers of the Mughal kingdom which had kept him imprisoned. By using a simple strategy like a child would, when they play I Spy, hide and seek. That's what children do, right? And Shivaji used this strategy to not only gain his liberty, but also secure the liberty of his motherland. While these are various types of simple crisis management, the four upayas themselves say the simplest of them all is Sama, and it's also the best one. Sama is conciliation, which can be achieved by a simple conversation in a civil manner. And all of us also know that death is the last point of life, right? And in death, there is no return. And in such a crisis, people can hardly think. And we have an episode in the Mahabharata, which is also known as the Itihasa, where you find that the Pandava brothers were subjected to a test of sorts. It so happened that one day, when in exile, Yudhishthira, the eldest of them all, was extremely thirsty. He sent brother after brother after brother to fetch him some water, but none of them returned for the longest time. He became very curious, and he was also very concerned. So he went in search of them. And on investigation, he found them all dead beside a beautiful enchanted pool. The tragedy was so overwhelming, but his thirst was much more overpowering than the tragedy. So when he stooped down to have a drink of water, he was stopped by an invisible voice. It said, "Don't do the same foolish mistake that your brothers did." And immediately, Yudhishthira was able to put two and two together. He knew the key to the mystery of his brother's fate lay in this voice. So he asked the voice, "What do you want me to do then?" So the voice, which happened to be the voice of an yaksha, that's how the voice identifies itself, tells him that you should only answer a few of my questions. And Yudhishthira answers every one of those fairly long questions and questionnaire in a very succinct and successful manner. The questions were not ordinary questions. They were all around the subject of philosophy. It was esoteric, and it was dealing with the Dharma Shastras. And he was able to answer all of them with calm and composure. The Yaksha, who was actually Yama, the god of death, manifested himself in front of Yudhishthira and told him that he could seek a boon of the life of any one of the brothers. At that time, Yudhishthira seeks the life of his half-brother. And when Yama is curious about his choice, he explains. He says, "My father had two wives. I am the surviving son of Kunti. So I would want one of the sons of Madri, the other wife, to also be alive." And Yama was so impressed by his selflessness and also fair-mindedness that he restored the lives of all the brothers. And of course, it's a happy end. Now, you must be, and he used the technique of Sama here. Now, for those of you who are wondering, why were these 4 tales told? 17th and 18th century India, 3rd century BC, and something which is about easily 4,000 years old. The stories were not only told to reimagine the ordinary, the power of the pestle of Onake Obaba. Okay. How the pen is mightier than the sword in the case of Chanakya. And in the case of Shivaji, it is where there is a will, there is a way, even if it's a basket. And eventually, Yudhishthira, who was, let us say, patience on a monument in times of such a great crisis. They all did something very ordinary. And that is what made them extraordinary. When does the mundane manifest itself into the magnificent? There is a philosophy. I am not giving you case studies that can be followed. I am asking you to look at the bottom, the philosophy of this mundane. Each one of them was truly and genuinely and sincerely committed to their goals. In the first 3 cases, it was love of the motherland. And in the case of Yudhishthira, it was the fraternal love. Okay. When you are committed to a goal, resource will happen on its own. You will become creative on your own basically because you are committed to that. And that commitment has to be true. Okay. And solutions will not happen overnight. It requires a lifelong of discipline at the physical, mental, and spiritual levels. And more than all of this, you need a sense of alertness and common sense. And when all these things come together, it is possible to turn any mundane situation into a momentous situation. There's a saying in Tamil which says, Vallavanukku pullum oru ayudam. Vallavan means for the resourceful person, even a blade of grass can become a weapon. So now we know who is this resourceful person. He is not doing some kind of, it's not a one moment thing. It's not a temporary solution. It is a lifelong affinity to the goal and working towards the goal and willing to bend backwards and leave no stone unturned towards the goal. And they say history repeats itself. Why don't we repeat history in the spirit of being truly resourceful? Namaste.